Hello, dear Layba, and congratulations for being selected as a finalist for the Exceptional Young Women of Peace Award.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
And so let's begin by having you share your name and your location, meaning where you live and where you do your work.
Yeah, so my name is Layba. I am 20. I am currently based in Auckland in New Zealand. I am a law clerk at an immigration firm, but I'm also a community organizer here at the Auckland Women's Centre, where we do work around anti-stalking legislation that is currently coming through our government to keep women and marginalized communities safe, because before this, stalking wasn't criminalized. And unfortunately, a lot of women were being harmed in other vulnerable communities. So a lot of my work there is making sure that our work is intersectional and takes into account all our communities, not just those who are the majority in this country. Um, and yeah, that's probably me. I'm in my final year of law school, so I'm quite excited to
Congratulations.
graduate. Um, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about your work, Liba, and also if you have a story about the difference your work makes, or tell us
Yeah.
in general the
Yeah.
difference your work makes.
Yeah, I mean, so before I started working at the Auckland Women's Centre, I had started a project called Consent Law Reform. So, like I mentioned before, I'm a law student, and I began this project three years ago now when I was a first year law student. And it was after I had gone through reporting to the police my own sexual assault. And it was a very, for lack of a better word, awkward experience because the person I was reporting to, he seemed very uncomfortable to be talking about my assault. And after that, I was going through the process, weighing up the pros and the cons of going to court, and very quickly realized that the odds were not in my favor because of the way that the law is set out and the way it is written, which is it's quite complicated for the average person, and it was really complicated for me as well as a law student. And so I really began to think about the impacts that our law was having on survivors of sexual assault. And so from there, at the same time, I was actually doing youth parliament, which is something that our country has every 3 years, where you get to represent a member of parliament and actually sit in parliament in their seat and do a speech. And so from there, I launched my campaign, which was to reform our laws in regards to consent. One of the areas of which is making sure that we have an affirmative definition of consent. So basically, what that means is that right now in our laws, they talk about what consent isn't, but it doesn't tell us what consent is. So, what that really means is that in courts, judges and juries are able to come to their own conceptions of what consent is, which often means that in cases where, such as mine, where the victim or the survivor has been in a relationship with the person that has assaulted them, there can be that perception that, oh, because they were in a relationship, that can be counted as consent. So that's just one of the things that are flawed in our laws. And so I launched that campaign then. We did a nationwide petition, got over 12,000 signatures. We gave the petition to Parliament, and after which they did make a report that recommended that our laws be reformed. So that was a very big win for us. Um, After that, unfortunately, our government changed, so the parties had changed, which was a bit of a roadblock, but we're still currently working on putting it back on the agenda. But honestly, throughout all of that entire process, it was it was a lot of community work, which also meant tapping into my own experiences of childhood sexual assault. And it obviously brought up a lot for me, and there was a moment where I was considering stopping the campaign or taking a step back and letting someone else do it just because of what I was remembering and my own experiences. And then I remember at one of our rallies, we had a young girl who was my age when I was first assaulted come and tell me that because of how open I had been with my experiences, she had gathered up the courage to go seek counseling.
Mm.
And that was a very full circle moment for me because one of my biggest drivers for this campaign and all the advocacy and all the community work or whatever it may be, even in just pursuing law, was that I needed someone there for me when I was younger, and I wanted to be that person for other people. And so I think like it's not necessarily like a measurable variable that you can put in your report or something that you can say tick off the list, but having seen that community impact was really really important to me and is really important to me in all the work that I do because I'm Pakistani, and a lot of our culture is surrounded in community. And for community to show up and be there for each other is that is in my eyes true activism, to make sure that we're meeting people where they're at, to not everyone has access to the same amount of information or time to know all these big terms, because advocacy can be really scary. And so for a community to be able to come together, even if it's just signing a petition, it's friends showing up for friends, it's parents learning about the harm their children might be going through, it was that kind of firsthand impact that really filled my cup and motivated me to keep going. And similarly with our advocacy around the stalking, anti-stalking campaign, just hearing from people, women, their partners, genuinely anyone, just hearing about if it's given them strength, if it's given them the words, the tools, if it's, given someone's boyfriend the tools to be like, oh, my girlfriend has gone through something. I know now how to support her. It's those little things that really do mean a lot to me rather than the really, really big wins, which do take a long time to get and do mean a lot. But I do think that we would be remiss in our jobs and in our positions if we weren't connecting with the community as we go. So that's a very long-winded way to answer your question, but I hope I have.
You
Um,
have.
yeah, I think it's that community because it is so easy to feel so alone when you are in these spaces fighting violence, and it is so easy to feel so isolated. But when you have that community around you and you are constantly in touch with that community, it not only keeps you humbled and grounded, but it also helps you keep going. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Liba, and thank you for your own bravery to tell your story. And I'm so delighted that you've been able to be recognized for the difference that makes to others, as well as your other, as you've said, big work. But thank you for that honesty and that bravery. So, Liba, how do you define peace? And you've already talked a little bit about this, but I don't want to miss anything from
Mm.
you. And so, what is the source of your dedication to your work for peace?
I think my answer will be quite similar to what I was talking about before around community. Because if I think of peace, obviously there's other variables and everyone has their own definition of what peace looks like for them. But for me, I see peace as, the ability for communities to feel safe and connected and respected. I do think that we unfortunately live in a world where it's not very often that we're able to create spaces where people can live without fear and with dignity. And so, again, thinking about my work with survivors of sexual violence and assault and all that comes with it, for me, peace means having spaces where people can go to be, to feel not judged, to feel at ease, to feel comfort. That is peace. And I think it is only when our communities on the ground feel heartened and feel motivated that we can make impact on larger scales. Because again, like if we're not lifting each other up here on the ground in a grassroots approach, because that's the approach that I always take, it's a grassroots one, then there's no point in the work that we might be doing. I was very fortunate to go attend the United Nations status on the Commission of Women earlier this year. And I don't see my work there as useful if I'm not bringing that back home and constantly consulting with the communities that I'm in and with, because I'm only there at the UN because my communities have enabled me to do so. And in everything that I do and everywhere that I am, it is a constant process of not only just reminding myself of the privilege that I have, but also of the mission that I'm on, which is to create peace, hopefully, which is a very ambitious goal, I will say, to create peace in our communities. And, if that looks like seeking law reform, if that looks like just having a chat with someone and helping someone go through the process of seeking a counselor or telling their parents, that is peace for me. It's those little pockets of peace that I like to keep in my heart. And they also give me hope. I think something that I will say in today's day and age, it is very easy to feel hopeless. And it is very easy to feel like the world is doomed. But again, those little pockets of peace in our communities are truly what are going to help us change the world and change the communities um that are struggling at the moment. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so beautiful. Thank you, Liva. So, in your work for peace, of what are you most proud?
Oh. Um, see, I I'll be very honest in saying that I feel like in spaces like these, it's very difficult to give yourself a pat on the back sometimes
Yes.
because again of how much of like an upward hill it can feel like. But I will say, like, I feel most pride when I see people being open to changing their minds about things like sexual assault and what drives it in our communities. I was having a conversation with someone on campus because I'm currently also the president of Thursdays in Black, which is a campaign in tertiary spaces that works to eradicate sexual violence in universities. And basically on Thursdays we wear black to kind of show that solidarity. And we had an event during Rape Awareness Week where there was we had a panel on drivers of systemic violence in our communities. And I had someone approach me at the end, and he was like, I came here because I was curious, blah, blah. And I truly did not know how common it is for victims to be gaslit, for them to feel victim blamed. And, but also, I don't know what to do if someone comes to me. And so I take a lot of pride in knowing that A, people feel safe enough to come and ask. Because again, it is really scary not knowing what to do. If someone comes to you and tells you something so personal to them, of course you're going to be afraid. You don't want to say the wrong thing. So I take that pride in being a part of creating communities on campus that actually gives people the space to ask these questions, to be curious, and to want to help others, because different people are at different capacities. Not everyone has the capacity to go to the UN. Not everyone has the capacity to start a campaign. And so to be able to help people meet them where they're at and say, look, if your capacity right now is to be there for your friend who has gone through something, that is your biggest superpower right now, and that is your biggest thing that you could have done. And that is a great, great thing to help someone do that. So I think I do like to take that pride in knowing that we do help people in different ways. And I think to meet people where they're at in a truly intersectional manner, because different cultures have different understandings of consent and sexual violence, and that's also something that we do often forget. So, yeah, I think that's what I take pride in, just being a safe space. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So, in closing, what would you want others to know about you and your work for peace?
I think I would like to say that everything that I do is driven by 11-year-old me.
Ah,
And when I say that, I mean, like, for example, I always knew that I wanted to study law. Like, I always knew. I'm the first in my family to study law. And I have this very one distinct memory of when I was maybe 10 or 11, I want to say, and I was sitting with a lot of my family back home in Pakistan. And I was like, I'm going to study law and I'm going to be part of a nonprofit and I will create change. And I was a very motivated
yeah.
11-year-old. I used to read a lot, so I was very ambitious. And I remember Oh, my cousin's like obviously like laughing and my mom being like, oh my God, you're so silly. Because obviously like it's an 11-year-old. But, and that was also around the same time that I had gone through my childhood sexual assault, but I didn't register it because of the age I was in and I didn't know what sexual assault was. But subconsciously, the two clicked for me. And I think I everything that I do, I think about would that fulfill 11-year-old's me dream of wanting to create change? And so far the answer has been yes, because I remember when I got into law, I was like, that's a tick. I'm part of many non-profits now. I'm doing work on the ground. That's a tick. But again, like I said at the start, I want to be who I needed at a young age. And for us as women of color, where we don't even talk about sexual assault or even sex, it's still a very taboo topic. It is so important for representation to be there, out there. We need to see people who look like us, who speak the same language as us. And I think it is a lot of the work that I do is for my inner child, and it is to give her that hope and peace that I didn't get at the time. And I'm very proud of myself for pulling through. I had a difficult time going through and understanding my own sexual assault because I only understood what had happened when I came to New Zealand. I came back. I was born here, but I grew up in Pakistan. So when I came back, I remember we had a rape awareness week at school, and I remember seeing one of those kind of cliche posters that were like, "Oh, this is not correct behavior." And I went to a counselor at my school, and I was like, "Hey, like." I have these memories. I don't know what it is. And to sit through a counseling session where in a school that you've just started at the peak age of 13 and to be told that, oh, actually, that is sexual assault, and then have the trajectory of your life changed is quite a big thing. But I think to pull through, I give myself a pat on the back for pulling through that difficult time. And it is still difficult. I think healing is a very non-linear thing. And so I think the reason why I know what I do will always fill my cup is because my motivator is making a safer space for myself, but also my now little sister who is turning 16 soon, which is insane to me because she's a baby in my eyes. But yeah, I think if I make the world even a teeny bit better for her, my little sister, then I will know I've achieved something in my life. Yeah.
That's wonderful, Layba. Thank you so much. It's
Thank
clear that you are a very accomplished young woman and very worthy of being recognized. So thank you, thank you, thank you for the work you're doing in our world to make it a better place. You are an exceptional woman of peace. So we look forward to seeing you and to having you be recognized for the work that you're doing. Thank you
thank you,
so
Sam.
much.
Thank you for listening to me talk.
Oh, absolutely. It was delightful. Thank you.